Hunting for that magical genie with piles of cash? Join Candice and her guests as they uncover financial secrets, have a laugh at past mistakes, and savor financial rebounds. Thank you for listening. Let's dive in and do something today that your future self will thank you for.
Welcome to the Money Flow Genie podcast. I am just delighted to have Himanshu Jain here to talk to me about his journey into financial freedom, which I believe you're there, but I don't know if the journey ever ends. Welcome to the podcast, first of all. I don't want to talk to you like you're not here in the room.
Thanks, Candice. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about this next hour and just our conversation. Yeah, looking forward to this. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So the reason why I brought you on the podcast is one of the things that really touched me about who you are and how you operate in the world and what journey you've gone through and the decisions you've made. I think it would have such an impact to our listeners. But before, I want to introduce you a little bit to our listeners, and I'll have you add to that as well. You are, this you just blows me away. You took $1,500 and turn that into a financial freedom portfolio of over 200 units and multifamily. You used to be in IT. I know I'm just in awe of what you've done. So I want you to give yourself a formal introduction, if you don't mind.
Sure, sure. Yeah, as you said, right? I mean, when I came to US, I just came with $1,500 in my pocket, and I came here on a job and everything. And I was in IT at that time. Everything was good. I came here to North Carolina. I was there for a year. Then I moved to Cincinnati, and everything was going well. And then suddenly this 9/11 happened, and I was let go of the job, and I was given 10 days ultimatum that either you find a new job or you go back. Okay. And that was really shocking for me. And I think that's where I kind of realized that I need to be in control going forward. I cannot be relying on others because these kind of things can happen. And this was the first experience for me being laid off. And that's where I kind of decided to take the control. And I joined a friend of mine. And from there on, it's been a ride. It's been a fun ride. I started my IT consulting company in 2007. And that's when I got my green card. So once I got that, I started my own consulting firm. But as I said, the laid off has a big impact on me. It was always in the back of my mind that I need to make sure if something like that happens again, I'm not putting my family at risk. So I need to make sure I have multiple streams of income. And I think that's where I got into real estate because I looked for a lot of different options and I realized I was looking for something passive, right? And I found that real estate was the best passive option that I could come up with. And I decided to start investing in real estate since then. So since 2013, I've been investing in real estate. It's mostly a buy and hold kind of a thing that I was doing. So I bought a condo in Chicago first, converted into a vacation rental. Then I bought a couple of more there and then set them up as vacation rentals. And then I bought multifamily here in St. Louis in 2016. So I've been accumulating over a period of time. My goal is to get to 200 doors. I'm not there yet. But again, I think I've done multiple things in real estate if you look at it. I've done flips, so I've done vacation rental, I've done multifamily, and I'm also a real estate agent. And I work with other investors too. So yeah, gamut of things. But at some point, you reach a point where you're not able to scale up. And I think I reached that point in 2016, 2017. And I realized, the only way to scale up is to go syndication route, right? You got to go and buy bigger multifamily properties, but you got to do with other investors. You just cannot do it on your own. So this year in 2025, like last year, 2025, I quit my W-2 job, completely transitioned into real estate. And I've been looking at 100 plus unit properties in St. Louis, Chicago area. I have a team of investors that I'm working with. So it's just a matter of time. We, underwritten hundreds of properties over this one last year, made offers on multiple properties, but haven't closed anything yet. I think it just takes time, and that's my learning. I thought when I get into this, I will have, 100 doors, 200 doors in 1 year, and the whole year is gone.
No, it's a big eye opener, isn't it? When you scale up, there's a whole
Yeah,
nother world that you have to understand
yeah,
how, where am I in that?
yeah.
We can touch on that in a bit, but before we move forward, I want to hear about, this is a part of the podcast where I like to hold for you and for our listeners the self-praise showcase, because it's really something that our society shames us on, to boast about ourselves in a very healthy way. So I want to hold that space for you and share something with us that you're really proud of yourself.
Okay, well, this is good. So I would say I've always thought of myself that I've been able to create value from nothing. When I was in IT consulting, I was just working as a consultant, but I was able to scale it up and start a company of my own. I was able to hire people in. So I've always, I would say maybe that's my journey. I've always recalibrated in a way, right? If things have gone bad, I have taken it positively, saying, okay, maybe this is a sign for me to get out of my comfort zone and do things which I wanted to do, but I've not done it. And I think, and I've always done that. Anytime things have gone wrong for me, I have taken it as a sign of recalibrating and pushing myself into a area where I have always wanted to, but I've never taken that kind of a plunge or a risk. And it has always paid for me. It has always worked for me. And I think because what happens is when you get this kind of a push, you're very focused, your intentionality is high. And I think that's where it gives you the focus and you're able to achieve what you want to achieve. So I would say that's been my thing that I'm proud of, that I have always converted my going down or whatever you call it, into an upside for me. Yeah. A downside into an upside. Yeah.
That's very powerful. And when you think about when you're moving into something in the unknown, it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful to hear that's your strong point. Even though it might feel like, yeah, a little scary at the
Yeah.
moment, that is part of who you are. And
Yeah.
so I think that's wonderful, and it's extremely empowering to hear that it sounds like to me, you did it once, you drew on that previous experience. Okay, I did it there. Let me try to do it here. And one of the things that I'm also noticing just from what little bit we've already started to talk about today is that you also have the understanding that there is a part of you that knows, but there's a part of you that doesn't, and you're not afraid for asking for help,
Yeah.
which is a hard thing. I know for myself, sometimes that's a hard thing. So it sounds like that is also an attribute to your success.
Yeah. And again, I think with the technology, the way things are nowadays, especially social media, right? The YouTube channel, the podcast, and there's a wealth of information that comes through these channels, and that gives you access to people like you and me and so many other people who have already been down this path, right? Whatever I'm trying to get to. And you have an easy access in a way compared to what was before, right? Now you have a way to get in touch with them and learn from their experiences. Even through these podcasts, right? When you hear about these different stories, I find it very inspiring. And it has played an important role in my whole journey. I mean, the podcast, I would say, would be one of the biggest thing that has helped me in my journey, because there have been so many stories, so many inspiring things that you hear from people. And then you also learn about the things which have gone bad, and it gives you an idea, okay, what not to do, right?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes, and I want to touch on you. Before we started this interview, you were telling me that you actually have started to take action, got your studio for your podcast. So I want to touch on that and also understand that the with that, you're absolutely right. And what you shared about, and we'll share with the listeners about your podcast, is sometimes when we're moving forward in life, we may have a big idea or a passion that we're afraid to tell people around us just because we haven't shared that part of us, or it's just we're not in a position that we ever talk about that. And it can make you feel really alone. And maybe I should just, not that we want to stay where we are, but there is a comfort. If something is works, you don't fix it, but then there is always a desire to expand, to have more. So let's hear about your podcast, because I think this is like a perfect segue for that.
Okay, good. Yeah, so as I said, podcasts have played an important role in my life. And I've been inspired by a lot of different stories that I've heard from people. So my focus right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm kind of using my own journey. And as I said, I have always recalibrated myself. I've pivoted, when things have gone bad or things have gone down. I've pivoted and I've created an upside for me. And I know a lot of my friends who have done something similar, right? So they have gone through, and it could be for different reasons. Like I know a friend of mine who is passionate about food, and then he started a restaurant, right? I think, and this is what my podcast is about, recalibration. What I'm doing is I'm trying to bring these stories, these journeys out to people, where people especially who are sitting on the edge, who want to do it, but they haven't had the courage or haven't had a chance to do it. And it's mostly people are not able to take that plunges because of the courage or because of what happens if it doesn't work, right? And that's what stops us from doing it. And I think my intent is when I bring these kind of stories out to people, it will inspire somebody to take that kind of a plunge and get onto a journey where they have been thinking about it, but they have not started on it. So that's the intent. That's what I'm trying to do with it. And the focus is going to be on my Indian community who have been in US, because a lot of people who are from our community, they're not good in English at times. So language is an issue. So my podcast is going to be in a language where I can speak in Hindi or English, a mix of these two things. And at least there is a communication which can inspire a lot of other people in the community.
Wow, that touches on, it didn't even occur to me to, well, English is my first language. I'm always inspired and in awe of the courage of people that live in this country that do not speak the language and are successful. It blows me away. And technology helps, but it doesn't, it
Yeah.
their life remains the size that it is based upon the people they surround themselves with, that they can actually communicate. I know that a while ago I had a pet sitter that came. He was
Mhm.
amazing. I had some really interesting dogs that were very picky about who they would be. One was a shepherd, so he was very protective. And
Mhm.
this gentleman walked in the door and he was just, the dog just melted to him. And I was like, wow. But he was deaf. This gentleman was deaf.
Okay.
And so we had
Mm.
this conversation. He could read lips. And
Mm.
I was talking to him a little bit about the action of the animal, and it ended up
Mm.
expanding to his world was limited, even with technology, for instance, like on this podcast, where
Mm.
if you didn't have the captions, the closed caption underneath, he would have to have the software at this time to put it on top of. He always had to do something extra. And ever since I remember that, and I thought, no matter what, whether you can click a button to make it happen, I'm just making it happen. So it's like not one more thing that someone has to do in order to get information. And I
Mm.
think that is beautiful that you're going to be doing these multilingual. It's just fantastic. It never occurred to me, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and these people have been here for long. They can speak English, but I think the fluency might not be there. I mean, and the comfort level might not be there. So I'm just keeping it open that way. It's a kind of a mix of both. So make them comfortable and get the best out of the story or the journey. The focus is more on the journey than anything else. However that story can get beyond and get to the people, I think that's the main idea.
Yeah.
And language is just a medium, right? It can be in English, it can be in Hindi, it can be a mix of both, as long as it conveys the story. and the emotion behind it, the success and failures behind it. I think that's the main idea. Yeah.
And when you think about language,
Mm.
it's things aren't necessarily translatable, particularly what we're talking about. We're talking about
Mm.
nuance, uh,
Yes. Yeah.
and experience and feelings, and you can't take that and
Yeah.
display and feel that experience or portray that is better description from one language to the other. You really can't. And
No, very well said. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
You
so
put it
that's
nicely.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
You
that.
put it in a very good context and the way you put it. Yeah, exactly. I think the language helps you with that. That's the emotion part of it, communicating that out and yeah.
It's really interesting. So first of all, what's the name of your podcast? And we'll definitely have to keep us posted when you have it coming out so that we can put it in the show notes and
Yeah. So it's called Recalibrate.
nice.
So
Excellent.
Recalibrate the real estate podcast. So,
And do you know when you're going to be launching?
so I'm working on it. I'm hoping that I should be able to release by end of this month. At
Nice.
least have one episode out by that time. Uh,
Nice.
that's what yeah, I mean, you have done these many, so
Yeah,
the first one always takes time, right? The
yeah, it
first
does.
one, yeah.
Yeah, there's so
So,
many little moving things that you think, oh, wait, I got to have a platform to put it. I mean, there's so many little things. You can record the podcast, but where do you put it? But
yeah,
you really can get the podcast out there without having all the websites and the platforms and everything set up. You can do that. I just like to have a certain foundation set and then build upon there. But there, it just depends on the individual that's doing the podcast. One thing that I really love to have is having this fluid, organic conversation, not only because just to edit is would take a lot of time, but it makes it choppy. But the other aspect is that we're missing that. We're missing that human interaction back and forth, just relaxing into whatever it is that we're talking about. It's not about billboards and showing how much I have. It's about how I got there, where, if I'm there at all, setbacks that I'm having, and how am I going through that. For sure. One thing I had an interesting, I've been using artificial intelligence for business planning purposes and things. I'm really learning how to use this amazing tool and seeing where it totally fails. And each AI has its own niche that it's good at.
yeah,
So just to ChatGPT is terrible for doing any kind of spreadsheets or making a calendar. Don't do it.
yeah.
There are other avenues out there
Yeah,
for
there are a lot of other tools. It's amazing, I mean, there's so much of learning happening. In last 1 year, I would say I've learned so many new things. And with this AI coming in, I thought this AI one would take care of everything. No, as you said, there are so many spatial tools. One tool is specialized for this, other tool is specialized for this. So yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And how this is playing out or how this is panning out. I mean, yeah, I think the next few years is going to be amazing to see how things are going to change. And I think it's a major shift. I think it's a major shift for all of us. It's like what internet did. I think AI is going to just be another level altogether. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember watching there was a local celebrity. He was a radio host and he started a restaurant and he became a business partner when the internet first came out.
Hmm.
And had these tech people coming into the restaurant because they were doing their first like server in the area. I'm not even
Okay.
sure exactly what it was, but I just remember like seeing all of these wires coming out of the building, and I'm like, what does that have to do with the restaurant? So we were chatting about it, and I'm like, the World Wide Web. I couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out. Like my brain couldn't wrap around it, and now it's just, how did we live without it? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
It
nuts.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's really interesting that I have found, and we're talking about tools and processes, and I want to hear your take on this. I just recently was like so AI is a generator of patterns. It sees patterns, it identifies them. With the right prompts, you can use that use to see inner inflection. What are the patterns that I am doing that are
Mhm.
holding me back. And I've been exploring that with AI, and it's been phenomenal. And just actually this morning, I was putting pieces together, like patterns together, to see how that has affected my money decisions. And things that you hear people say, oh, money is the root of all evil and all these things, but they're so superficial. Have you come across anything like that for yourself, that as you were in your journey, that you realized, oh, this is the way I operate in the world, but it's not serving me here in this. I need to let this go and shift and pivot and try to learn a new perspective.
Yes, and again, might not be exactly what you're looking for, but just going back when I started in, I've been in technology all throughout, right? So technology, I'm open to adapting technology, and I'm open to technology that way. So when I first bought my multifamily, right, I knew upfront that I want to build the platform. I want to use a platform that allows me to leverage and bring all these pieces together. So as I scale up, I have one platform where everything I can get a one window and I can get a view of how things are doing, right? So
Mhm.
I adopted the technology upfront initially, and it has been a great find and a great journey. But from a learning perspective, where you have to recalibrate at times, like for me, the recalibration happened when I bought this multifamily. I had a property manager who was managing it for me. And my focus was, I thought when I just bought it, now that this is going to be on its own, it will run on its own. But that never happens. Nobody makes money for you. You got to be managing them. So till the time I was managing the property manager, it worked fine. But as I got busy with other things, I know my focus was not on the properties, and I was totally relying on him. And then things went down, and they were defer maintenance. The property rents were not raised on time, and all that. So all that happened. So that's where I realized I need to take it back and I have to manage and control this. And so the point that I'm trying to make it is, especially on the rent side, my focus initially was not on increasing the rent. I was focusing more on just keeping it occupied. And I realized that's not the right approach, right? Because in multifamily, I think the numbers are important because that's what defines your net operating income. And that is what defines the value of the property. And if you're not raising the rents, you are losing or you're leaving money on the table. And that's where I had to pivot. I had to change. I had to make sure that we are raising the rents every year. And because the cost is increasing too at the same time, right? I mean, the utility cost is going up, the insurance cost is going up, the taxes are going up. So you have to make sure that you're running it as a business and you are doing what's needed for the asset. You just cannot, the story doesn't end once you have bought it. I think that's where it starts. Yeah. So,
Yes, and it definitely is a learning curve in that, and there is a fine line too of constant turnover costs a lot of money, because usually when you have that kind of turnover, then you're having to put money into fresh
yeah.
paint, maybe the appliances. It's amazing how a tub can have a big hole hit in the middle. Was this a retaliation? Like, did you drop a bowling ball there? Like, how does one do that? But
Yeah.
these things
Right.
happen. And
Yes.
I mean, there's tons of stories that people can have. They're not necessarily nightmare stories. It's just management. It's just
Yeah.
how can I've experienced this? What I'm not going to live in a fear factor around it, but at the same time, what can I do to eliminate the chances of that coming to a certain degree that's not going to impede with my mental stability around it as well? Did you find that you had to really, was it first initial just like pivoting and recalibrating to how much time you needed to spend with the property manager? Did you meet with the property manager and say, look, we're going to have to do a weekly meeting? How are we going to do this? Like, how did you go about deciding that?
So I think it was just getting back into the cadence, right? So and defining what the cadence is going to be, how often we are going to talk about and what we are going to talk about once. And this is no different because I was doing same things on the IT side because as a project manager, as a management manager of the team, You have the schedules, you have the deliveries, and you're constantly managing it, right? So it's the same thing. It was just that, you overly rely sometimes because you think you have defined the process now. The process is there. All this person has to do is follow the process. And again, I think it's sometimes you lose sight of, because you see other things that you're focusing on. So I think it was just a matter of that. And then once I took over and I realized, I mean, I don't need to do much. The system is already there, right? All I have to do is make sure that I'm providing a place which is comfortable to live. And I'm not cutting corners when it comes to doing things, right? I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. As
Mhm.
long as I'm trying to do the right thing, I think things work out. And people do appreciate that. Tenants who are living there, they do see, and a lot of them have told me, you are one of the best landlords in a way because you always take care of things when it's needed and you do the right thing. So I think it's just a matter of being clear that it's not about just money only. You have a property, but it's a home for somebody, right? And we need to make sure that it's comfortable and it does do what it is supposed to do. So you cannot be just purely driven by numbers. I think there's a human aspect to it. And that's an important aspect.
That's what makes your business successful, for sure.
Sorry.
Because particularly with multifamily, the way that it's presented as a passive income, it is presented as only numbers. And there's a lot involved in determining the value of a tenant. Uh, do I increase this because I've got a tenant that is like really good at paying, but can't afford, say, the same percentage, but the turnover will cost me more? And where is that point where I decide maybe on this particular unit, I won't go in and maybe I'll give a new stove, reward this tenant by replacing a stove, but not repaint the entire apartment. So that it's deciding that decision factor, whereas the human factor with the numbers is what makes that multifamily unit successful with, and then multiply that because it's multifamily with all the units and getting a property management company that also understands that interaction, that balance between numbers and human interaction is
Yeah.
really key, is one thing I've noticed for that. Yeah.
And I think it's a very fine line, Yeah, and as you said, if you let one aspect take over the other one, you're losing money or you're losing the human touch about if you just focus on your numbers.
The human aspect coming in is such a strong part of any business that people forget about. And AI is not going to replace that. If anyone has actually worked with AI, that fear will go away. That's just, I don't know what hype people are saying that robots are going to take over the world. If you interact with AI enough, you'll see just how it is simply a system that you have to readjust and readjust to keep it calibrated, like driving a car. To me, AI is equivalent of like having a really nice car that can get you from point A to point B as long as you take care of it. And it will give you insight and information that will that will upgrade your car basically to maybe a jet. That's basically
Yeah.
what I see AI as being, but the human factor will always remain. And just like what you're talking about, that human factor in multifamily is so important.
And not only that, if you look at any technology or if you look at any change that has happened in the past, there are two things that comes along with the change, right? First is the substitution, right? When internet came, what it substituted, what it changed. The other thing is the addition that it adds to the life, right? And that brings in a lot of new platforms, a lot of new things. Who had thought about Netflix? Who had thought about these YouTube? All this is addition because of what internet did. So same is going to happen with AI. It's going to substitute some things for sure, yes, but
Mhm.
then it's going to open a whole lot of new things which we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to become the base point for the future.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Now, when you first start, like once we get to a place where we're actually moving forward and like you're in the multifamily world, you've been in it since 2013, it's like almost like second nature. Now, granted, you're moving into multifamily syndication, which is a whole different beast. Yet everything that you know from your experience before is the same. Now you just have a larger team that you're working with, a different avenue of which you have to manage within the management as well. How are you, from what you, when you first started saying in the beginning that you needed to have some type of passive income because you weren't leaving your IT job at the moment, but you knew you could lose it at any moment. There is a lot of anxiety and fear that can happen inside. How do you, what do you say to yourself? How do you get yourself to say, hey, I have to do this. Let me figure out what to do. What steps could you give someone that is right at that line, but they just don't know how to go that next small step to start putting those together to create a life where they want to be?
Yeah, I think to me, I would say the first thing to look for is, do you have enough resources? Do you have, if you're talking about leaving your job and doing something, then you got to see whether can you sustain yourself for like 6 months or a year, right? If you cannot, then my suggestion would be you go and do it parallelly with your job. And then slowly, once you get to a point where you have some income coming in, or if you have some kind of you established yourself, then you transition out. Maybe you have not replaced your income 100%, maybe you have reached a 50%, 60% level, and that's the time when you can shift. But that's a decision you have to take. I don't think, at least not for me, I was not ready to take a plunge before I knew I was in a place where I can support myself for a year or so. So, especially my kids are out of college now, so transitioned out based on my terms, right? Based on what my situation was. So I have two daughters. One was still in undergrad, and she finished her undergrad in 2025. And that's why I said, now I can do the shift because she will be done in the middle of the year. Then I don't have that kind of responsibility. And I have enough I can support. Plus, my wife is working too. So you have to look at your resources and see what you have. Do you have enough to move forward and do what you need to do? I think that would be the first thing that I can think of, right? And then second is going to be you cannot say that I'm going to do 50% here. You got to give 100% to this thing as well. So you got to overwork. You got to do more than what you're planning to do. So that means you will compromise on other things, right? If you're still working and doing your W-2, and that means you will have to cut down on your whatever your sleeping time, your
Yeah.
recreational time, or whatever that is, right? Because that's the time which you would be putting in into this new stream that you're trying to build, right? Build. So I think those are the things that somebody has to look at and see, do you have the resources and how much effort you're going to put. You got to put 100% in both these things to make it work. So I would say those are the two things. And other than that, it's just a matter of you have to give enough time. You have to be persistent. Things doesn't work out in the first go. As I said, like I have spent that whole year, I do not have anything to show at this point of time because I haven't acquired anything. But that doesn't mean I haven't gained in the process. In this whole year, I have learned a lot. And that's part of the journey because probably you haven't got a deal because you're not ready for the deal. That's how I look at it. Maybe there was a learning that was supposed to happen and it has happened now. And so I'm getting to the stage. So hopefully soon I will have something which is more tangible and saying, oh, yeah, I achieved this now. So yeah, it's not the end result only. And I think we were just talking about initially, it's the journey too. So you got to enjoy the journey. You got to, that's the beauty of whatever you're pursuing. is enjoying the journey too. The end result will not give you because once I buy or once I acquire, say 100 unit, 200 units, that's not going to be an end of it. Then there will be something else. So there's always the journey which matters more to me, right? Because that's what you're trying, that's what you're pursuing. The end result is just a landmark, just to say that, okay, I've reached this point. But I
Right.
think it's the journey which matters.
There's a gentleman called, I don't know what his actual name is, but he's as Humble the Poet. And he wrote a book about anxiety and really
Okay.
did a dive into anxiety. And it was at a Hay House event where he had a workshop, and I went to see him speak. And it was something that just really blew me away at the end of his presentation about anxiety, which was, and I'm not a person that ever affiliates with myself with thinking about I'm an anxious person at all. And he was talking about destination.
Hmm.
And he realized that for him, destination became an addiction. And that
Hmm.
was like, whoa. Because in the process of starting, like you were just talking, pursuing something new, giving yourself the time to learn, be in the process, be in the journey, I was noticing that the destination became more of a focus as opposed to paying attention to the journey. And so the
Yeah.
destination was becoming addiction. And
Hmm.
therefore, with any addiction, it doesn't matter what it is, things in your life you will sacrifice, whether it be
Yeah.
relationships, your own personal care. We could just go on and have a whole podcast on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because the other aspect about financial freedom is that you really do have to have a passion for what it is that you're pursuing
Hmm.
and not just do it for the numbers because that doesn't work.
Yes.
Burnt out or just bored and move to the next and then never have a solid foundation. You'll always have
Yeah.
a pivoting one
Yeah.
that
Your why
creates
has to
an
be very clear. Your why has to be because it calls for a lot of discipline. Your motivation can only take you to a certain point, but then if things doesn't work out, your motivation is going to go down. Then what's going to keep you on the path? So your why has to be there. The why has to be strong enough so that you can continue on the path, even though it might take a little longer, but it'll get you where you want to get. And you said, like when we're going for, if you're going in a train, if you're going to a specific place, just reaching the other destination is not the only thing. The best part of the ride or the journey is looking around, seeing what you are. That's where the journey, that's where the value is. And I think as part of, sometimes we do forget about that. I think we're just too focused on the destination. And I think that's the time where you got to stop and take a deep breath and say, okay, why am I doing this? What's behind this whole thing? And I think that allows you to kind of, recalibrate yourself and just start doing what needs to be done. Yeah.
I love the concept of your podcast because one thing that people don't realize is that a high paying, job, whether it's a physician, there is a social expectation that's put on people. I know that I didn't know this person, but I heard the story and I totally relate to it, is that there was a woman who was an attorney and she was exhausted. What a high pressure job and that whole profession and the demands and such. And she wanted to retire, but she didn't know what she wanted to do.
Mm.
And she just wanted to make pies. Now, can you
Mhm.
imagine the pressure, the
Yeah.
social pressure to be amongst your peers as an attorney and just say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this anymore. I just want to make pies.
Yeah. That's true. That happens, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
all have gone through that. I think what you're saying is that we try to live based on the expectations of others. We live
Yes.
our life based on their expectations. So basically, what we are saying is they're writing our story and I'm following that story. That's not how it should be. I should be writing my own story. And I think that's where the shift needs to happen. And yeah, I mean, it happens. I know that's why it takes time for people to take the plunge because there's so many other external factors.
Mhm.
Uh, you can do certain things on your own, but these kind of pressure is still there. However, as a physician or as a technologist, I have a certain lifestyle. I need to maintain that too. Those kind of things, it all comes with these kind of challenges that you have to deal with. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting. I've had a landscaping business for 33 years, and it's a great part of who I am. I'm also an artist, so I sculpt the land so it feeds the creativity like no tomorrow. And I
Mm.
love it. And most of my clients want to learn how to do it because it's therapy all day long. Talk
Yeah.
about Zen moments of just being in the
Mm.
moment. And it's just fantastic. It's really interesting when I have shared with working for the same people for 33 years, they get to know about your personal life. So I'll
Yeah.
share about things like going into the real estate world and doing the podcast, and they don't know what to do with that. I have been
Mm.
put in this little square box that I am
Yeah.
the gardener, the landscaper, and I don't fit anywhere. I've just stopped. There's like maybe
Mm.
one client of all my clients that I can touch on it a tiny bit, but it can't go very deep.
Yeah.
Can't go very
Yeah.
deep. It's very, very interesting on the pressures. So with that being said, it doesn't matter what financial bracket that someone might peg you into, the pressure is still the same with
Yeah.
the people that surround you. And that's
Yeah.
the beauty of having a podcast and like what you're going to be doing, because the pressure of the level of the people that you're going to have such impact to allow them the freedom to say, hey, I did this for X amount of years and it's not feeding me anymore. And that it's okay to pivot and change and to
Yes.
calibrate, just like you're
Yeah.
naming your podcast.
That's very true because I have been thinking of doing this for almost 2, 3 years now. I mean, it's not that I just decided on one day and
Mhm.
change. No, for 2, 3 years, I was lost, right? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because I have been in IT for 25 years and I
Mhm.
enjoyed doing that. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. Initially, I loved it. I used to travel Monday to Thursday. I was traveling. I was on the road most of the time, but I was enjoying every bit of it. But I think you reach a point where you have done it enough and then it doesn't do anything for you. It becomes like, it just becomes part of you in a way. And I think you're looking for something more. And I think that's where I was for last 2, 3 years. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And congratulations on acknowledging that within you. That is huge. Not many people will suppress that to
Mm.
stick with I think I just have to keep doing this. And in a way, it's betraying yourself. And if we're not happy with who we are and how we operate in the world, then that's going to project in our outer world. And people tend to self-sabotage in whatever way that might be, their MO for doing that. It's kind of like the self-forcing change if you don't change. So why not have that choice and explore that, and then instead of setting yourself up, because you see people crash and burn all the time. And if you really do like the really analysis of like, oh, hindsight, well, you did you did that because of this. And if you had just done that, you wouldn't have gone there.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell all my friends, like, you are on your journey, I'm on my journey. I mean, we are just kind of walking together. We just have a path which is common, but then you can go your way, I will go my way. And that's how it is for everyone, right? Everybody is on their own journey. So there's no right and wrong. It's just whatever works for you. And I think that's what we should try and do, which we don't. And I think that's where the courage comes in. That's where the persistence comes in. That's where even discipline and consistency comes in. Just being sure of this is the path you want to be on and then just continuing on it. And I'm not saying this is going to be a path forever. No, I can still change at some point. I might decide, oh, I've done enough of multifamily. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. Someone told me, I forgot who it was a long time ago, only compare yourself to yourself.
Yeah.
And that
Exactly.
when you do that, then you know exactly where you are and where you want to go
Yeah.
with ease. But it's not easy. It's certainly not
It's not,
easy.
no, no, you're right. It's not easy. I mean, you will get digressed at time. You will get distracted too. But I think that's the time when you need to take a halt, take a stop, and then rethink about it and just recalibrate. And okay, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Himanshu, this has been fantastic. It's been so deep, which was, I knew we were going to get to this level in the podcast. And this is the point where people are able to be inspired to have the courage inside to make change. Because we can hand anybody any business plan to implement. There's so many things out there, but it's the inside gears that need to be aligned in order to make any business plan successful. You
Yes.
said to me when we were having our first conversation that it's focusing just on the one thing, and whatever you can succeed in any one thing, you just have to keep that focus. And I see that you are a living example of that. So thank you so very much for sharing your experience and being vulnerable in the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. This was such a nice chat, I would say. I mean, I enjoyed every bit of it. And I think the way you do these podcasts, I really like it because it's about the journey, right? And it's all about the personal human touch and not just about numbers. I really enjoy that part of it, just talking about the journey and the self, right? And
Yes,
sharing and learning from each other. Yeah. I
yes,
think that's the
absolutely.
beautiful part of it. Yeah.
And where
Thanks.
can our listeners get in touch with you?
So they can connect me through my website, recalicapital.com, or I'm Facebook with this Recalibrate Capital, or they can look at my YouTube channel, which is Recali Capital. So those are the places they can connect with me. Yeah.
Great. We'll have that in the show notes. And then the Money Flow Genie podcast website. We also have a resources page where we have everybody listed and describe, again, listing how to get in touch with you. So, and we'll definitely update it when your podcast episode comes out. I
Yes.
can't wait to see that.
Yes.
That's going to be fantastic. I look
Yeah.
forward to it. And I probably will listen in Hindu as well because it's such a beautiful language to listen.
No, I will let you know once I have the first one out. You will be the first person to know about this. So thanks
Oh,
for having me on this call, and yeah, really enjoyed it.
thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I want to thank our listeners for being here. And I hope you got as much out of this podcast as we did. And remember, do something today that your future self will thank you for because you are your own genie in a bottle. Thank you so much again for hanging out with me today. And thanks, everyone. See you next time.
The info in this podcast is straight from our personal experiences. You alone possess the power to manifest your desires. You are the genie in the bottle, awaiting your command. So ask smart questions. We're not licensed financial pros, so be sure to consult with a licensed professional, attorney, or tax consultant.